Let's talk. Let's have a real conversation. Trigger alert. This may be triggering for some of you. You know, it's a bit of a morbid subject, I guess, but let's discuss conversations to have before it's too late, or conversations to have before you die, or conversations to have before someone you love dies. You know, we have to look at all of the ways that we protect ourselves. And in preparation for death, you know, it's common for people to spend time finding the right life insurance policy, or, you know, they create burial plans and last will and testaments. But what about preparing for mental and emotional health during the aging process and in preparation for the dying process? Oftentimes, people ignore having the conversations that could actually protect the aging process and preserve life force. By having conversations with the people we care about, rather than ignoring those conversations, we really can alleviate cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is, in layman's terms, that experience where the way we want to show up or what we want to believe is true about ourselves is not exactly the way we're showing up in life. So we have this ideal about our persona and our character, and we know what feels like authenticity, and we know how integrity looks to us, but something in our life force isn't matching that ideal. Okay, that's cognitive dissonance. Also, cognitive dissonance when we have ideas about the way the world works, or we've always thought things were a certain way, or, you know, our families taught us to be a certain thing, or, you know, the golden rule, or, you know, you reap what you sow, so do the right thing. And then we grow up and we find out that no, a lot of people that are nefarious still seem to get away with, you know, doing the wrong thing. Or it doesn't matter how loving and kind you are, that doesn't stop war or famine or poverty from existing in the world. Truth can create cognitive dissonance. So having the conversations that we need to have, you know, it actually removes fear and unnecessary obstacles. But when we're stuck in a space of anxiety, or we're literally stuck in that fear, it can prevent us from saying the things that we need to say. Sometimes the things we need to say are very simple, kind, beautiful things like, I love you, Mom. Dad, I really appreciate you. Thank you for doing your best. But then, of course, there are conversations that are much more difficult, and sometimes we need to have those with people before it's too late. So there's a couple of ways to look at this when we're having the difficult conversations, or at least preparing to have the difficult conversations. We can look at it as energy clearing. We can also look at it as brain resetting, or we can look at it as repatterning of epigenetics. So energy clearing is more that energetic, spiritual way of looking at, why do we have the conversation? So that we can sleep at night, so that we don't, you know, have this unnecessary karma, and so that we can change negative energetic cycles and patterns, you know, within our experience here as humans. Brain resetting allows for us to be in our truth. It allows for proper, healthy, emotional self-regulation. Brain resetting allows us in a new unit of time to be very clear about what we believe the truth is, and anchor in that truth and reprogram, upload new software, I guess you could say, to the mental computer that allows you to thrive, that allows you perhaps to survive and move through trauma, and then find your resilience and be a better version of yourself. And then there's the repatterning of epigenetics. Epigenetics is such an incredible science. It's the study of defense mechanisms and emotional genes and coping skills that are passed down from generation to generation. Epigenetics don't actually change the physical genes or the physical disposition of a person, but they certainly do impact the way we move through the world emotionally. And some of the latest research illustrates that at the time of your grandmother's conception in her mother's womb, the emotional genes and markers for defense mechanisms and coping skills already were present that exist in you today. So really a fascinating aspect of science. So however you choose to look at it, energy clearing, brain resetting, or repatterning of ancestral epigenetics. This topic, approaching it assertively, diligently, and intentionally, allows us to really address things so that we can sleep at night. Okay? We can also look at this subject, I guess, spiritually. Sometimes people separate the energetics from spiritual. I think a lot of us see them as one and the same, but just in case you see it as maybe through more of a religious lens, I wanted to offer that as well. But whether you look at it as spiritual, energetic, clinical, or scientific, any of these ways, clearing the energy allows us to be free of stubbornness. We can clear the energy of stubbornness by just having the conversation that needs to be had. We can clear the energy of apprehension and avoidance. And this actually moves into brain resetting and epigenetics, really, if you think about it. If you clear the energy of apprehension and avoidance, well, this is actually addressing your attachment style, which is, it's another clinical subject. The ways that we connect with people, the ways that we communicate, our attachment styles. Avoidance is one of those. If you can clear the energy of avoidance and be more proactive and have the conversations that you need to have, you're actually clearing energy, brain resetting, repatterning the epigenetics, and allowing yourself to be spiritually grounded. By having the conversations that we need to have, it allows us to be a catalyst sometimes in the family. We can be that first person that begins to address things assertively rather than having pink elephants in the room that we just don't discuss, taboo subjects. By being intentional and saying the things that needs to be said, a lot of the time it can alleviate patterns of entitlement, crossing boundaries, judgment, and inappropriate defense mechanisms that maybe create more pain in a family than love and light. Having the necessary conversation creates a brain reset by alleviating anxiety, stress, worry. It alleviates overthinking, fear, and panic. When the brain isn't engaged in stressful thoughts, it can then relax and focus on self-regulation. So when the brain's not stressed out about the conversation that you're refusing to have, it can just do its job. The amygdala can remain calm instead of firing off. The nervous system can remain calm. The cortisol levels in your body can remain balanced and appropriate. You can self-regulate. Self-regulation is where you really feel like you have a grip on life, where you're managing thoughts and feelings rather than having them manage you. Self-regulation may include mindfulness or distress tolerance practices. And it certainly includes communicating effectively. There is a style of communication called interpersonal effectiveness. It's a part of the dialectical behavioral therapy program created by Marsha Linehan. Interpersonal effectiveness allows us to have really impeccable, stellar conversations by improving our communication style, by paying attention to the other parties involved, recognizing their needs, validating their needs, honoring their needs, but all in an attempt to have our needs met. So validating your person, your loved one, honoring their truth so that you can have the conversation, so that you can whet their palate, if you will, and create the foundation whereby they're willing to listen to you as you speak your truth. Now back to epigenetics. It's a science that looks at family patterns, defense mechanisms, response habits, reactions, coping skills, etc. And we now know that the emotional genes that are inside of you, like I said, were present within your maternal grandmother at the time she conceived your mother. So by changing our coping skills, we are actually making room for new patterning in future generations. There's also some research, it's a little bit controversial, that has demonstrated where, let's say, a grandparent, a grandfather, or great-grandfather goes into therapy or begins to assertively address some patterns and dysfunctional cycles and habits, and then they make some changes. They have some new cognitions, this grandparent or great-grandparent. They change their habits and their behaviors, and therefore they change in their heart space, and they change in their psyche, and they change in their communication and the way they interact with others. Some of the research demonstrates that their children and grandchildren and even great-grandchildren who may live in other cities, another country, another continent, another hemisphere, also begin to repattern, even though they are not themselves in therapy. Fascinating. Epigenetics, the more we study it, although we're talking about emotional genes, there's a very strong energetic and even spiritual component to them that I'm not sure we can deny. I think we have to just embrace it. If a family member can change because you switch the way that you conceptualize your life and the way that you do things, if you change up the way you communicate, if you begin to be more intentional and more assertive and have the conversations that are difficult, but you have them with truth and love and honesty, with integrity, and your family members, your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren that may not even be here yet can change and be different, all because of the choice you're making now. Wow. Just wow. That's just incredible. So by having necessary conversations before you or someone you love passes on, you're able to be in your truth, and your authenticity anchors within you. Being truthful in your communication, having those conversations that need to be had, grounds you and alleviates cognitive dissonance. By being in your truth and having these conversations, you release fear and you stop ghosting yourself. Yes, I said ghosting yourself. You know, we talk a lot about people ghosting other people. Maybe you've been ghosted, or maybe you've ghosted someone. But ghosting yourself, oh, that's just so deep. In other words, rather than running away from how you really feel, ghosting yourself, imagine assertively dealing with your feelings by expressing them in a healthy way, having the conversations with parents, grandparents, siblings, your kids, your boss, your coworker, the person you're dating, having those conversations, setting boundaries, rewiring the energy of the relationship with strong no, or this is how I like to do this, or please don't embarrass me. I was working with a couple of years ago. They're in their late 70s, very late 70s, and the husband was distraught because every time they would have guests over, the wife would embarrass him. She would say something really condescending or rude. And he wasn't sure how to handle it. And I said to him, the next time she does this in front of your friends, just look at her and in front of your friends say, I love you so much. Why do you embarrass me like this when we have friends over? Please don't do that. I love you, and this is why I never disrespect you in this way. Please don't disrespect me in this way. And so he did that. And he came into the therapy session, a few months later and said, I cannot believe how that worked. He said, I never confronted her. I just held on to the pain and the suffering and the anger. But I finally addressed it the way you told me to do it, calmly. I wasn't angry. I started off by telling her I loved her. She embarrassed me in front of our friends, so I just said it in front of our friends. And of course, it was awkward, and the friends kind of looked. They felt strange. And he said his wife just looked at him. Eyes got big. She was in shock. And then her eyes welled up. And she just apologized. She said, I'm sorry, I won't do that anymore. And then he said it ended. I haven't seen them in a couple of years. I know they're still living. But we can have the conversations. They might be hard, but we can set boundaries. We can let people know when they've hurt us. We can apologize for hurting them. We can say, we should have done better. We have to rethink this. We have to get better before one of us is gone. We can have these difficult conversations, though they are difficult. They are challenging, but they're also so healing, so very cleansing, and they can change everything radically. So when you refuse to ghost yourself and you assertively deal with your feelings and you give yourself permission to have the conversations that are hard, this shows compassion for yourself. Ghosting yourself, not listening to your gut, not following your instinct, ignoring, or procrastinating or saying, well, I'll have that conversation one day, or one day I'll get to, or one day I'll express. By ghosting yourself, it's a lack of empathy for you. It's a lack of empathy for your loved one. And it's a lack of creative conceptualization of what could potentially be if you would just exercise the courage to speak up your truth. So having the conversation that might be difficult before you die, before it's too late, allows you to alleviate your own brain from unnecessary suffering. It'll help you calm your nervous system, and it has the potential to create ancestral healing and repatterning. Repatterning starts with you. Our world heals one person at a time, and one healthier person is a less dysfunctional person. A less dysfunctional person is one step closer to a healthier world. And the reason for that is because when individual humans begin to be better versions of themselves, practicing authenticity and integrity with a strong character, speaking their truth, even when the truth is hard, they grow, they heal, their immune systems are better. Their immune systems respond to sickness and disease better because they're congruent. It's very difficult for our immune systems and our cells and organs and our blood and our bones to show up for us when there's inconsistency. We really are mind, body, spirit, energy. If we're not whole cognitively, spiritually, energetically, or emotionally, the physical body might do its very best to thrive, but it's going to be extremely challenged and taxed. When we're clear, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, energetically, and physically, and of course, dietarily, nutritionally, all of that. The whole system, the whole team, if you will, is able to thrive. So be in your truth. It's grounding. When having those difficult conversations, focus on just saying what you really need to say. It's not about whether or not the other person is going to hear you or validate you or agree with you. That's not the point. It's about being in your truth so that you can remain self-regulated, so that you can sleep at night, so that you can breathe better, so that your nervous system can calm, so that you can model for your children and your grandchildren and anybody else that's watching how to be in your truth, how to be authentic, how to show up, how to have the difficult conversations. Now, like I said, some of the conversations are going to be, I love you. I forgive you. I believe in you. I'm so proud of you. I trust you. I'm open to you. Thank you for letting me be vulnerable with you. Thank you for being vulnerable with me. Thank you for speaking your truth to me. Thank you for setting boundaries with me. Thank you for showing me how to love. I mean, there's so many conversations, right? And then other conversations are going to be, don't do that again. If you hit me again, I'm leaving. Don't hit our kids. I'm not enjoying our relationship at this point. Can we work on revamping our love, our romantic partnership? It might be a conversation with your boss. I've worked for the company for 40 years. I really don't have much to show for it. I'm going to be dying soon and I want to leave my kids and grandkids something. Can you help me with the retirement plan? Now that doesn't really seem relevant in this day and age, right? Who would have a job where there's no retirement package or there's no option for leaving something to your kids? But, when I work with my older clients, I have clients that are all ages from 11, 12, all the way up to 90. The ones that are older, I would say over 80, they haven't always been as assertive their whole lives. They haven't always negotiated salaries in the ways that we might do it nowadays. They haven't always protected themselves in the ways that we're all learning to do now. So there's a big learning curve for everyone. And I certainly honor anybody who is doing the work, whether it's working with a therapist or a life coach or a healer or some type of any kind of holistic practitioner, just to be better. I certainly honor that in you. So in order to have difficult conversations, we have to give ourselves permission to do it. We just have to honor that and give ourselves permission and create a strategic action plan. When are we going to do it? But we can also focus on dialectics, which is one of the things that dialectical behavioral therapy talks about. Dialectics are the synthesis of opposites. So the synthesis of opposites is where we just accept that for every truth, the polarity may also be true, or for everything that exists, the opposite also exists. So we have day and we have night, right? We have a sun and we have a moon. We have light and we have darkness. We have agreement and we have disagreement. We have truth and we have lies. Okay, polarity does exist, but the synthesis of opposites is an acceptance of the fact that I may speak my truth, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the other party will endorse my belief or my truth, and that's okay. It's okay to feel nervous, but still have the conversations that are necessary. Say what needs to be said. It's totally okay if the other party doesn't agree or like what you have to say. It's okay to notice that your ego wants to remain silent. But even in that space, still find the courage to have the conversation that needs to be had anyway. Also, by focusing on love, peace, and positive outcomes, you can create a whole new paradigm for yourself, your family, and your loved ones. So consider clearing the energy that no longer serves your highest good. Consider creating self-regulation and a calm nervous system by releasing what has been pent up inside of you. Consider repatterning familial habits and creating healthy new choices that could possibly be extended for generations to come. Create a new launch pad. Launch from your truth and stay grounded in that truth. This protects your life force. It makes the aging process less complicated. It alleviates complex grief when you or your loved one finally does pass on. All because you said what you needed to say.